Welcome to Believers, where you can learn and discover from those that take committed action in their business. Learn from their experience, knowledge, and wisdom, born out of putting their time and effort into what has purpose and meaning for them as leaders. Their self-direction gives them continued motivation in the face of hardship. And from them, we too can be inspired to discover our very own path of value and committed action. Please welcome your host, Benyaacov-Kurtzman.
Hello and welcome again to another episode of Be Leaders, the business live talk showcase with myself, Benyaacov-Kurtzman. And today we're continuing with a guest that was on our show before, Ed Faber. And Ed Faber is a strategic growth consultant. And it was so interesting that we wanted him back again to delve in a little bit more about how we can help people, especially in the food and drinks industry, with a strategy that can help them grow, especially under the current circumstances that we're in and that we find ourselves due to the pandemic of 2020. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring Ed right into the studio. Ed, welcome back again to Be Leaders Business Showcase. It's always great to have guests, and it's especially great to have you back.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So basically, let me paint the picture for you. So we're living in the depths of a pandemic 2020. We all know what that is. We all know what it means. And we're kind of, especially in this country, moving towards coming out of what we can name lockdown. But we're coming out into a different world than we went into it with. And basically, since this is a business show, we are concerned with the economy and how it's actually going to affect different industries in this country. You being in Scotland and working from the food and drinks industry. So kind of just paint me a picture. First of all, what is a strategic growth consultant for those who are not sure which space are you working in, and how do you see this pandemic? First of all, let's start off with the problem. How has the pandemic affected your industry?
Well, look, just a bit of background. This is the food and drink industry in Scotland is hugely important. It's responsible for over £5 billion worth of exports alone, without considering domestic markets. And really, aside from the products we all know, such as whiskey and salmon and shellfish, there are a myriad, thousands and thousands of small to medium-sized organisations who are feeding this industry, who are creative entrepreneurs, who are manufacturing fantastic product and supplying not just UK markets, but all over the world. So it is important. The Scottish Government has labelled the industry as one of significance in terms of its ability to achieve its strategic targets of growing the economy in Scotland. But of course, as you mentioned, strategy now more than ever is super important. It's really important for people to start thinking and behaving strategically in order to make the right decisions. So that's what I do. I help them on that journey.
Right. So just for people that are tuning in here that might not even be from the United Kingdom, what is the population of Scotland? You mentioned it was a small country. What is the population there?
Okay, so the population is around 5 million. And interestingly, actually, it's one of the few places in the world where a few years ago the population was actually shrinking. That's turned around now. But we represent about 10%, just under 10% of the total population in the UK.
Right, so that it's quite extraordinary when you mention that the industry is £5 billion of exports. You said, so that is quite significant. Then when we're talking about what pitfalls are really affecting the industry now, and how badly has it been affected by the pandemic?
Well, I mean, we'll start with your last question. this industry we're in, particularly the hospitality part of the food and drinks industry, putting the retail side aside for a second, people are nervous. First of all, restaurants and cafes are not open. There are a few offering a carry-out service, but people aren't comfortable with the idea of sitting in restaurants yet. So we're going to be one of the last industries to recover. There's no doubt in my mind about that. It's not to say that people can't progress their business and start to do things. Lots of examples of that, but it is going to be a tough time. It's certainly a long journey ahead before things get back to some level of normality. In terms of the people, the manufacturers, and the SMEs, the small to medium-sized businesses that I work with, they're all incredibly passionate people. They show the classic behaviors of entrepreneurs. So they're all fantastic opportunity recognizers. They have a tolerance for risk. They are real action-orientated guys, men and women. So they really want to crack on and get things moving. So they're fantastic catalysts for the economy in our country. However, what I do find is from time to time, I come across lots of people who put strategic level thinking on the back burner. And that's almost overlooked in favor of this action-orientated kind of being involved in the day-to-day operational aspects of running their business. So, for me, it's about trying to encourage people to just take a step back, take a wider view, take a longer view, and really that's what we need to try and do.
So being a strategist in the world that's unknown at the moment, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of, I would imagine, people in the industry that are suffering from a lot of anxiety regarding, personal feelings aside, but anxiety for their businesses, for their industry. A lot of entrepreneurs who I understand, there's a lot of people in that industry, going out of business, as they would say. As a strategist, what at least some of the best ways to approach this for somebody in your industry? What would you say about that?
Okay, for me, there's some fundamentals, and what I call vision thinking. So taking that longer view of and trying to envisage what the business is going to look like, or what the entrepreneur wants the business to look like in 5 years' time, or 10 years' time, or however long their strategic plan needs to be. I was very fortunate to work with a guy a number of years ago who did some work and wrote a book around a topic which he framed as liquid thinking. And that's really about getting into the detail of how you view your organization and yourself in 5 or 10 years' time. So start with that. And really, one of my ethos is start with the end in mind. And really that, for any business person, whether it's someone starting a new organization or even someone already 10 years in, start with the end picture. So take the time to understand the environment around you. Take the time to understand your internal environment. So what are your resources like? How good is your knowledge in the organization? How good are your skills? What about your capital assets? Your machinery, is that fit for purpose? So we'll do a bit of internal analysis, then take a step back, look at your external environment. And of course, you mentioned the pandemic. So what we try and do is encourage people to think about what's happening politically around me in the outside world, what's happening environmentally, and of course the pandemic feeds into that. Socially, legally, economically, technologically, what's happening technologically in the world that will either hinder me or potentially can help me create a stronger business. And in history has great examples of fabulous strategists. As you know, the Romans were fantastic civil engineers and had these amazing civil engineering projects. They were able to build these huge viaducts and transfer water huge distances. And if you've ever traveled from Carlisle to Newcastle on the Roman road, there's a great example on the Roman road there where they had this plan, build this road from point A to point B, channel all the resources into this really highly defined project, and get the job done. And they were superb at it. And actually, the same principles apply to running a business. Business owners know where they are, visualize where you want to be, and try and find the cleanest, sharpest route to get there. that's going to be the most economically efficient.
You mentioned before that we've learned from you about a little bit of the psychological side of this, dealing with the situation, and I'd like you to expand a little bit on it regarding, somebody's been, working on his business maybe a few years, maybe it's not even opened yet, but he was working, or he or she was working on their whole plan of how they're going to start up, and then all of a sudden the world changed on them upside down. Can you expand a little bit on what they need to, come to terms with?
Well, new ways of working. There's a lot of emotion in all walks of life, but a lot of people that I speak to and work with, they're emotionally charged individuals. And they've got a lot of passion, and sometimes that passion overflows in the wrong way. And one of the great cliches in business is, it's all about the people. It's all about people power. So one of the, when I go and visit organizations who've got human resource departments, and I ask them what their day-to-day activities look like in terms of human resource management, almost 90% or even more of their activities are revolve around what I call hard HR. So that's hiring and firing, hiring, disciplining, and firing. So, what I'm trying to do is encourage them to think about the bit in the middle. Think about the nurture. How do you nurture talent? How do you nourish talent? How do you nourish it with skill, with knowledge? How do you care for the soul of your organization, so that the behaviors of your people are right, that people are healthy, mentally and physically healthy, and they're passionate with the organization, and they're fit for purpose. So, behavior is very important.
So you mentioned they're approaching this from a behavioral point of view, from a mental point of view. What would be your best nuggets that you can offer the people watching this that are in that situation? They may be having emotional difficulties dealing with either letting go their business or changing their business, or I think you mentioned once even, possibly ripping up their business plan and starting over again. How would you, what kind of wisdom can you give over, even in a very short period now, to these people watching this?
Well, and this isn't necessarily about, partially about emotion and behavior, but, flexibility. People, there are entrepreneurs out there whose brainchild that they devised 5 years ago is no longer relevant. Their environment's changed, and actually what they found is the business is slowing up, maybe even going into decline, and they have to come to the realization that they might have to detach themselves from the original idea, the idea that they're emotionally invested in, and rewrite the rule book, start again. And so that takes a lot of guts. And one thing that entrepreneurs have is guts and a willingness to succeed, a drive to succeed, and they're good at coping with that. The other thing is, with regards to strategy and with regards to behavior and the workforce, is that very often, even if an organization puts a good strategy together, they fail to implement it right. So what they fail to do is take their people on a journey. So the generals will come up with a plan, and because they're not bringing their people on board and instilling the same understanding and belief and passion in the organization, then everything else falls away. So the strategic process just collapses, and everybody goes off in different directions. So take your people on the journey, and I call this, hearts, minds, body, and soul, and that is address the hearts and minds and body and soul of your people. Give them the passion, give them the knowledge, help them. Don't work them to the point they become ill. In terms of help them nurture their body, give them the time to exercise and to live a healthy lifestyle, instill the passion and the belief, and make sure that all of what one possesses as an entrepreneur is passed on to the employee. And that's a great way of ensuring a really holistically healthy organization.
So, Ed Faber, we've learned today from your knowledge and from your experience, and it's come over in a wise way. So we've learned from your wisdom as well. So what's left for me is to say, Ed Faber, thank you very much for joining me.
Good. Have I got time to say just one more thing?
Yeah, go on quickly.
Okay, so the greatest strategic thinker of all time, in my view, is a guy called Sun Tzu, who's a Chinese Imperial Army general. And he had some wise words. He said, strategy without tactics is a very slow road to victory, but tactics without strategy is a quick road to failure. So focus on strategy, combine it with your tactics, with your day-to-day actions, and you'll succeed. And
if somebody wants to get in touch with you, just give us your address again, please.
Well, you can contact us through the website at www.faberstrategicgrowth.com. So feel free to contact
Faberstrategicgrowth.com. Wonderful. So Ed Faber, once again, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Disclaimer: the Bleeders Business Showcase Show is for entertainment purposes only and not professional advice. To inquire about something specific regarding the contents, we suggest you contact the guest speaker directly. Should you wish to apply to be a guest on the show, please contact Benyaacov-Kurtzman on factcpfa@gmail.com. Benyaacov-Kurtzman is founder of Heads Up CIO, a UK emergency response charity for cognitive psychological first aid, and is a highly experienced psychotherapist, executive business coach, and author of the book, Mind Over Terror, 3 weeks, 2 cities, 1 mission. With over 10,000 hours of experience and academic degrees in government, law, clinical social work, and a postgraduate diploma in psychiatry with distinction, Dov is well placed to help you. He's also available for public speaking and corporate training.